Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Doing great. Good morning. Good morning. Is everybody this morning? Hello. We are in the penultimate week before Holy Week next week, so we will step into this Sunday with Palm Sunday. We have Snickers the donkey joining us. We have our Palm Sunday worship. We have Friday night. We are doing movie night. Very excited about that. That will be good fun. I hope you'll join us for that, maybe. Then we have all of our, and tonight we have our continuing Lenten series over in Wareham. So we've got, we'll be continuing our journey through the Lenten examination of Lamentations. Good morning. Hey, Karen, good morning to you. Jane, good morning. Hope you're great. Glad you're here. Good morning, everybody. Marianne, good morning to you. Hope you're doing great. Hello, everybody. Sorry about missing yesterday. Had a pastoral emergency came up so I was asked to give prayers at the bedside for someone who was leaving this world, and so we gathered with the family. So sorry to miss everybody yesterday. I hope you're having some goodness today. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the 25th day of March. We're out of March, friends. We got just a week left. 25th day of March on this Wednesday at 11:11, and I'm glad you're here and a part of the journey. That we're having this experience these days that we just crossed the threshold last week into spring, and that we are gaining light all the time. We are now more. We have more than 12 hours of daylight for the first time since when it's so sometimes it's hard. Since last fall, there's so much that is happening these days in the coming of the light. And even still, it looks beautiful out there. It was all bright and shiny, and you walk out the door, and well, it's a high of 44 right now, and it was this morning when I walked out was in the 30s, and I had ice on my windshield still. That we find ourselves in this world where I think light is everything. It's certainly feeling like the end of March, coming out of it. Light is everything, but it's also everything in our spiritual walk, right? That there's a sense of understanding that, and it's also everything in the wider world of our days. That part of what we're challenged with living in the world the way it is right now is simply this idea that things are either muddy, that we just can't see what's true, that in even when we can see what's true, it's through some kind of lens, through some kind of filter, and even if we do manage to see what's true, often it seems to be in darkness. That the light isn't quite even getting shown on the things that we really want to know about, or things that we really are things. You're shedding light in that we're in this, and I think the best thing we can do in some ways is this endeavor to shed light on the things that we find in this world these days, to bring our light to these different places. There's a line in Revelation where it says there shall be no night there, and there shall be no need of a lamp. It's describing the experience of being in the holy city. There shall be no light there. There shall be need no lamp. The light of the sun, for the Lord gives them light. So we're excited about the fact that we look out the window and it's beautiful and there's bright and it's shining, and even if it's not warm, there's light. And that this description of the holy city, this description of the world, is that the description of this heavenly realm, which we're being prepared for and made for, and being made to be ready for, is that there's no night there, and there's no lamp needed, and there's no light of the sun, for the Lord gives them light. I think there's this way of looking at the world in which that it's suggesting that it's a world without smoke and mirrors. It's a world that without shadow, because one of the things, if the light shines in a particular way, everything generates shadow. Even at the high noon, there's this way in which there are these things that are become occluded. And it's talking about this life, or this potentiality of a way of being, so that nothing is mysterious or included or occluded or in shadow. It's a lovely image, isn't it? That we think about, and it kind of challenges our keyhole kind of reality that we have. We're often looking through a keyhole. We're looking through, and what we see are particular events on the other side, but we know there's other stuff going on in the room. Like we might see somebody come walking into the room with a frowny face on, or we may see somebody crying, or we may see somebody laughing. But and there's this external way that we have some sense of what's going on inside of there, but it's a keyhole of the reality of what's going on with that person. But that's even true for us. That often I find I'm a mystery even to myself in terms of what's going on and why I'm doing things, and and the reality that sometimes I just need a Snickers bar. And that the promise of what we are being built for and towards is this promise of there needing to be no light. That we won't be thrashing around trying to understand what's going on. We won't be trapped in those ways. We won't be in this realm of not knowing what's going on, but we will be ever and always prepared, and ever and always trying to honestly understand on the deepest level possible what is going on, because we will know and we will see. And I'm not saying we're going to catapult in and live in that world. I'm saying what the process of God is going on with us is opening that greater light to us all the time. That's actually what's going on. That's what we're being prepared for. That's what we're being made for. It takes a life of fashioning to get us to a place where we can even be even mildly ready to step into that realm. But it's always at work, and it's constantly bringing us out of this shadow, out of the crazy filters of our life, out of the occlusion of our sight and of our being and of our knowledge, both of self-knowledge and knowledge of the world, and into this place where there is no night, where there aren't monsters and their shadows, where we don't need a lamp, where there's no light of the sun even, but it is by the very being that the Lord gives us light, that it becomes kind of an inside job of light shining through us. I have a friend of mine that this is kind of, I think, kind of, and we might how does that work, or how does that make sense, or how does it even make sense? Can we really trust that there's a God with this hand on us, with this operation, with this work that's going on in our life? And I think about a friend of mine that she's a chaplain. And she grew up kind of in the 60s in San Francisco, pretty hippy dippy in a lot of ways. She went on to found a ministry in San Francisco at the time, in the early '80s, dealing in the midst of the AIDS crisis. And so she had this incredible strength to her, but also this tender love and care for a population that nobody was caring for. And she had this way of really, of creating this thing that was tending the wounds of the world. But you can kind of maybe imagine what her politics were like and what her worldview was like in those days, kind of formed in that way and formed in that image and formed in that world. She had her own kind of keyhole reality of what that looked like, And this isn't a criticism. Don't hear me saying like just this is the way she came up and this is what she knew and this is where she was. But later on, she would go on to take a job as a chaplain in a VA hospital. And she would begin as one who lived through a part of the Vietnam era and was a part, saw the protest, the anti-war protests, and probably participated in a few of them. But she would find herself in the course of ministry as it would unfold, starting to care now for the nation's warriors and these veterans, and which is not necessarily a natural culture for her, as you might imagine. But as she started to come at it in this kind of honest way that she did, that she began to understand the wounds, the profound sacrifices, that the way in which that the world wasn't maybe formed in the way that she thought that they were, and that the people that were executing the nation's wars maybe weren't as she thought they were. And it changed her. It changed her worldview a bit. It changed her understanding. It challenged her own understanding of herself, and it was a result. I knew it through this whole process time, and she became, it was a process of God bringing her more light. Like that's what happened. And through this all, that God began to move her footprint, her understanding of the way in which God's operation, the way in which God's love, the way in which God's grace needed extension beyond any ways that she could even imagine. And she could see the reality of the person in front of her that in some ways had been caricatures in her mind prior to. She had come to be one that profoundly loved well, no matter kind of who was in front of her. Now, that's a beautiful story, isn't it? But here's the thing. Years later, she would lose her son in the Iraq War. I was a chaplain at the time. I would go out and I would officiate the service of a memorial for her son as she became not just one who tended the wounds of war, but she became one who then received those wounds. She didn't know. She had this experience. She had this moment that comes like right out of that Revelation quote. Like, we will not know God there from natural light, from our own intelligence, from glory arising from pride, but there will be spiritual light from the Word and from the Lord alone. That in her woundedness and in her grief, everything got stripped away, and she began to see that what was unfolding in her life had been this moment in which she had actually been prepared to receive this profound wound. That the light in which that had grown in her life had actually ended up being a thing that would be able to create a space for her to be able to endure the very thing that she had spent half a career, a wound that she's spent half a career tending. That the light of the world wasn't just her intellect, it wasn't even just her heart, but it became this lived experience about the loss of her son. and her ability to endure that and to move, I won't say through it, but to move with it for the rest of her days. The theologian Eckhart Tolle, he says that most people treat the present moment as if it were an obstacle that they need to overcome. And since the present moment is all we have, and that it is life itself, it is an insane way to live. Friends, the present moment right now is illuminated by God. There are messages coming in on your phone that bring with it a particular lens and a particular worldview. There are people in your life that will bring with you a particular, that will talk to you about a particular way or a particular worldview. There are things in our world in which will occlude our sight, which will even cast us into darkness if we follow them. And yet, what we are being prepared for is this place in which there is no sun, in which there is no night, but this place in which we understand and are understood fully, and we then are fully known. In our woundedness, in our pain, in our grace, in our strength, in our beauty, that all of it comes to glow with the glory of God. That's what we are being built and made for. That's what our little keyhole existence that we start out with whatever our formation is, whatever the way in which God made us, whatever parents we had, whatever cultural influences we had, and the way that if we let it, will grow and build and become a wider and more beautiful footprint than we ever thought possible. And that in doing so, we're not just being prepared to receive God's glory, but we are also being prepared to endure the great losses and the great sacrifices and the great difficulties which we will inevitably encounter in this life. Friends, this moment is illuminated by God, that his light is shining upon us. And it's shining into the dark places, not just the light ones, not just the ones we already know, but into the ones that where we grieve, where we lost, where we hurt. My invitation is don't treat it like an obstacle or something to be rejected. But let the light of the present moment come to you and let it shine today. On this beautiful but chilly day, let that beauty open you, not just in the natural world, but let the beauty of God that is shining into your life open you to a new way, to a greater way. And that it might be in this most basic and gross and fumbling way, the invitation to the land without night, to a heaven without sun, because the light and the love of Christ Jesus flows into us and through us and around us eternally and perpetually, as it already does in this world right now. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.